Welcome to VPG's Virtual Water Cooler Chat podcast, a platform that features professionals across a variety of industries and promotes growth mindset principles with a central pillar of championing the achievements of women. Our conversations explore a wide spectrum of backgrounds, experiences, and perspectives, creating a vibrant mosaic that enriches our collective understanding and strengthens our commitment to growth and empowerment. Today, we're speaking with Lorraine K. Lee, founder of Rise Learning Solutions. Lorraine is a keynote speaker and the best-selling author of Unforgettable Presence, Get Seen, Gain Influence, and Catapult Your Career. She is recognized as a LinkedIn top voice, and her insights have been featured in media outlets including CNBC, CNN, Forbes, Bloomberg, Fast Company, and Financial Times. Passionate about empowering leaders to elevate their presence, influence, and impact, Lorraine teaches popular courses at Stanford Continuing Studies and LinkedIn Learning, and previously spent over a decade as a founding editor at companies like LinkedIn and Prezi. Let's get started.
Thank you so much for saying yes to Virtual Water Cooler Chat. I am a huge fan. I read your book, took it on a cruise, and at the balcony, it was like, we have a lifeboat one. I was like, oh my God, that matches perfectly. I should do a post. So that becomes the YouTube cover. That's the inspiration. Yeah. I only take one book per vacation. So your book made it to Alaska.
Yeah, well, I'm impressed you read on vacation and then was very honored you chose my book. So thank you. And I'm excited to be here with you today.
I was just so impressed with everything that you've done, the consistency about your posting. So I've actually also binge listening to your Audible as well as podcast. Nice. Yeah. I've seen like some of your podcasts with Matt Abrams, I think. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Stanford, right? So many things, so many questions. So let's start with, who is Lorraine K. Lee and how did you become this best-selling author of, you have a lot of it out there, but Unforgettable Presence, Get Seen, Gain Influence, and Capitulate Your Career. So do tell.
Yes, so writing a book was not something that I had on my vision board at all. I studied journalism at university at Northwestern, and pretty soon, into my education, I realized, I love having these skills from journalism, but I want to do something different, not traditional journalism. And so did a few different internships, experimented with a few different things. And by the time I graduated, tech was booming. And I ended up reaching out to an old internship supervisor, and she said, oh, I'm working at this startup in Silicon Valley. It's amazing. You should come join. And so I hadn't considered the Bay Area as a place to go work. I wanted to move back to LA, which is where I'm originally from, but decided to give it a shot. And that became the first decade of my career, working in tech, in content and editorial roles. Most notably, I was one of the founding editors at LinkedIn and then the first editor at a company called Prezi. While I was at Prezi, I started really taking more control of my career, being really thoughtful about all the moves I made. And that's when I started deciding to get better at public speaking for my career. It ended up turning into a little bit of a side hustle, speaking at companies, podcasts. I became a LinkedIn learning instructor, and then I got impacted by layoffs at the end of 2022, as so many people were. After the layoff, I decided I'm going to bet on myself. Let's just give it a year. Let's see what happens. I have enough momentum. And then it was a year into the business where Wiley approached me on LinkedIn, actually, asking if I've ever thought about writing a book. So the idea of a book was there because some former coworkers and friends had asked me, oh, have you ever thought about writing a book? And so they planted the seed, but I decided I'm going to wait until I can do this with a publisher. And then the publisher came. And so the rest is history.
That's awesome. I love the book. Well, mostly blue is one of my favorite colors.
Nice.
And with that yellow, it just was really pretty unforgettable. So can we talk about why you decided to choose the book title as Unforgettable Presence and then the Get Seen, Gain Influence, and Capitulate Your Career?
Unforgettable Presence, that title took quite a bit of time to get to. When I first was ideating on the title, it took a lot of iterations. My suggestions were not very interesting in retrospect. They were very literal. And then I talked to my friend Martin Gonzalez, who also has a book out, and we had just met through LinkedIn again, just a few days prior. And he had offered, if you want help with your titles, I really like talking through that. He was busy with his own book launch, but he was so kind. I left him a voice note, and he basically said, the book title title should be something that people are not embarrassed to be seen reading. It should be something that they're proud of to be seen reading. And you also want it to be catchy, right? And so we did this little mini workshop and I had a few other people participate. And I wasn't sure, do I include presence in the title? Because the whole crux of the book is presence. Do I, call it something else? I think the first title that I liked before this was something around like make a memorable impression, because impression is sort of one of the outcomes of having a great presence. But then there was feedback that it was a little bit confusing. Like, does impression mean social media? Like, is this a book about social media? Like, what's going on? So then,
like LinkedIn impressions.
Yeah, exactly. So then, went back to the drawing board after getting that feedback. Yeah, I think it just came. Actually, I remember the moment it happened. I was in an Uber on the way to my acupuncturist. And then I was like, wait, Unforgettable Presence? Because, we had a bunch of words and things that we had brainstormed. And then I texted the group about it and everyone liked it. And so I was like, okay, I think this is the title and this is going to become the phrase and it's catchy. And I think it encompasses, what the point is of the book. And so that's how we came up with it. But it was certainly a process. So we came up with Unforgettable Presence, and then the subtitle Get Seen, Gain Influence, Catapult Your Career. I'm trying to get some alliteration in there.
The reason why I like present is because many times when people are even having conversation, they might be physically present, but not otherwise present because the phone will be there. They were like basically not doing that. So for me, the reason why I like this particular title is because the presence actually encompasses both physical and spiritual, in the sense that you have to be like present at all times, and like turning your phone over is not good enough. You're not actually present. I mean, that's what Simon Sinek usually said. It's like, well, that's a cheat. That's cheating,
Yeah.
So I really like that, being all there. If you are committed to something, just being all there. So that's why I took the book on a cruise, because I had to be all present.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you touch on a good point where presence does encompass a lot of different things. And a lot of people, when they hear presence, they think of executive presence, how I'm showing up in the room physically, high stakes situation, maybe the boardroom. And what I realized over the years is that presence is certainly, executive presence is one piece of it, but presence is really about how and where we are seen. And then the third sort of point I don't touch on as deeply in the book, but to your point, Ashley, it's also like, are you being present? So when you can be intentional and thoughtful about how you're being seen and also where you're being seen, that in itself naturally lends itself to you are being present in the moment because you're being thoughtful and intentional. So I don't think people in the workplace, when we talk about presence, think about it so holistically like that. But that's why I really latched onto that word and wanted to redefine it, reposition it a little bit, because a lot of people, again, when you think of executive presence, it can feel very intimidating. You're not sure where to start. Oh, I have to have a certain personality, look a certain way. So hopefully this book, makes it a lot more approachable and it's more empowering for people to start working on their presence.
I think executive presence, especially in the West, I mean, in the Eastern countries or other parts of the world, they might have other sort of, I think there's culturally bias and also gender bias. And so a lot of times, like, for example, the percentage of women in the boardroom are not that high. And many of them, just because it's a very small number, even if you can get mentors, sponsors there, a lot of time you could sit in the boardroom, you could have your arms there, but you cannot really cross, basically spread your arms, because they could, one, culturally conditioned not to do that, or basically trying to simulate, for the lack of better word, modeling after male executive. Mm-hmm. That's what typically people think of executive presence is. So I thought that your book actually to give it an alternative sort of understanding and also acceptance. I think that's really important.
Yeah. Well summarized.
Well, I did read and listen.
You read it, you listen to it, you got it from all angles.
So one of the things that I want to talk about is visibility and presence. So you are definitely very visible. And I don't even know how you do this on LinkedIn. I don't even know what the limits are on LinkedIn in terms of followers. I thought that it was like 50 some thousand. And then I ran and, kind of look up your profile. You have over 330K. So how does one get to that?
So I think in terms of actual connections, I think you're right. I think the limit is somewhere around the 50,000 maybe. But followers are indefinite. I mean, there's people with millions of followers on LinkedIn, so there's always room to grow. But to answer your question, it was a long journey and it took a lot of consistency. So it's kind of interesting because my LinkedIn journey had a few starts and stops. So I mentioned I was a founding editor at LinkedIn. Wonderful experience. It was part of my job to post content for LinkedIn. So that helped me stay somewhat consistent and build up a following, especially during a time when not as many people were posting on LinkedIn because they just didn't see the value or understand that it existed, right? And then after leaving LinkedIn, I had a bit of an identity crisis where I'm like, oh my gosh, like I don't even know what to be writing about. Like if it's not about LinkedIn, like that's a whole other issue around my career brand and tying it too close to LinkedIn. And then I joined Prezi. And then about a year in, when I started doing more of the public speaking, I realized, okay, I want to let people know I'm doing this, but I can't just always talk about me. So now I have to figure out what are some topics that I can speak on comfortably and passionately and to help others learn and to post interesting, helpful content to help people with their careers. So that is when I started becoming more consistent, posting like 3 to 4 times a week. And then it's gone up and down since. Sometimes it's like 5 or 6. There was a period. Now I'm back to like 4 to 5. So it's really in the consistency and then also making sure that you really engage with the community. So there's certainly people who post and then don't respond to the comments. They don't, engage with other people's content. They're just kind of drop it, leave it. And then you don't get to know the person and you're not leveraging one of the best parts of the platform, which is to grow your network and to meet cool and interesting people, right? I met you through, I think, your LinkedIn post initially, seeing that you posted about my book. It's a combination of consistency and then making sure you are engaging not only on your own post, but on other people's posts as well, because that's really where you get the value and then your followers will grow. But even if they don't grow, to 300,000, like you're still getting a lot of benefit from meeting interesting people and building those relationships.
Well said. I think that actually I have to get myself into the mindset of, yes, don't post and goes. But that's one of the things that my friend Melissa Cohen always said. And then the other thing is that you wanted to be like having a service sort of supporting your community and your community will be good to you. Yeah. And I think a lot of time is like, because I'm an ultra competitive.
Oh, yeah.
Super type A.
Okay.
I don't know when I'm going to hit like 330K followers, but I'm happy that I'm actually going to be hitting about 12K, I think, next month.
Amazing.
Or maybe by the end of, yeah. So part of it is like I just have to tame the monkey mind to not focus so much on the numbers because followers does not mean engagement. So as long as there's growth and then meeting interesting people, I think that's the outcome that I wanted to focus on so that I don't get myself to be completely competitive about how do I do this and follow the algorithm. So it has actually served quite well. I wanted to share a little bit about myself with you, because the podcast is both way. When you said that after LinkedIn, you had sort of a bit of an identity, I wouldn't say crisis, just basically you just have to address some of the things that you have to deal with between your work self and, personal Lorraine. So I was in patent litigation for about, 20 some years. And my dad passed in 2017. I have always been a workaholic, super type A. And so I did well for the most part, but I was not good at dealing with emotions. So a lot of it is that I cannot speak for other workaholics, but for me is that if I focus on work, then I didn't have to deal with the emotional grieving. So I did that for about like 2 more years. And my mom stays with me and she doesn't drive, but she's very active. She's turning 80 this Saturday and we have a snowstorm coming. So we'll see how that goes. So I have to sort of like have the role of reverse parenting. And I just didn't think that it would be conducive to having the lifestyle of litigation and then also taking on an additional role of what I don't even know what to expect because I can do my work, but I just don't know how to take care of my mom and not basically getting, having my evaluation being affected. Because I won't be there a lot of time, I suspect. 2019, I ended up deciding that I wanted to explore other options. I think your journey, it was not LinkedIn, I think it's after Prezi that you decided you got laid off and then you basically started your CEO journey. And for me, it was just like, I just don't think this is going to work. And I don't know that after being in the litigation field for a long time, wasn't sure that this is going to be conducive. Grass is not always greener on the other side. So what do? I need to I have bills to pay, whatever. So I ended up deciding that I talked to a couple of friends, and some of them is women founders of another company. And so she told me, she goes like, have you ever thought about being a consultant? I said, maybe. I mean, I was a case manager, so I know how to like manage workload and stuff like that. But being on your own is so scary. I was like listening to people, and I talked to my financial advisor, and I talked to like everybody. And then it took me 8 months to get all my stuff in a row. And then finally I submitted my resignation in December of 2019 because, I figured that if it doesn't work out, I'll just go back to a firm.
Exactly. That's the worst case, right? Which is not a bad case.
But if it does, then that might be something. So one of the things that I ended up like writing books, I wrote 3 books, all self-publishing, and everything was creative fiction and it's illustrated. So I work with illustrators. I'm not very artistic myself, but I know like kids or young women that I really love. I'm actually talking to one of them later tonight because she's going to work on a cake illustration for me for the March 17 event that we're going to raffle one of your books. So anyway, it's a lot of things. And when I told Seth, when we were talking stuff, is I had to be very careful in terms of word because I don't know exactly how this 23 best-selling author is going to say to me, and he doesn't want questions ahead of time. So he was like, I said, yeah, it was kind of a miracle that I wrote a book. He's like, it's not miracle. And I was like, surprise? No, he said, it's unexpected. So there's a lot of unexpected twists and turns. What would you say is the most unexpected thing for you during this particular journey?
Career. I would say the most unexpected thing was how me trying to get better at public speaking eventually would turn into my career now. And not just that aspect of becoming a big part of my career, but it really grew my confidence so much and changed me quite a bit as a person in a good way, in a way that I wasn't expecting. Like when I started it, I'm like, this is going to be great for my career because I see people who speak well, you think more positively of them, they seem more confident, authoritative, all these great things. As I rise in the ranks, I'm going to have to lead more meetings and speak up more generally. But it was, quite a surprise that, again, like I started speaking to companies, I started being asked to be on podcasts because I also was not someone, and you saw this in the book, like I used to be very shy, I'm still introverted. So it's just not something that I would have expected for myself beyond kind of that workplace skill. So it's been really rewarding, really fun. And also I still stay open because a lot of unexpected things will pop up in our career, such as, even writing the book. So as long as you can stay open and flexible, I think a lot of great things will continue to come your way. And I used to be quite rigid with my career, thinking, all right, I'm just gonna, go up the corporate ladder. But now I try to stay a little bit more open.
That's awesome. I mean, the thing is that you've got to be so proud of yourself, and your family and friends must be so proud of yourself. Like you mentioned that you're introvert. I always thought that I was an introvert. And then when I said it to my friends, they was like, you're not an introvert. I'm like, oh, fine, I'll settle with ambivert. I definitely am not an extrovert. But people thought that just because you can actually talk to people, you are an extrovert, but that's not how I draw my energy, So that's kind of interesting. I want to talk about your EPIC framework. Let's talk about that.
The Epic Career Brand Framework. So we alluded to it a little bit earlier. I was not super intentional about my brand earlier on in my career. I start off the book talking about a story of my time at LinkedIn and how I was someone who was well liked, worked hard, worked quickly, worked on high visibility projects. All these things I assumed would lead to a promotion or some sort of advancement within the company, and they didn't. And I was very frustrated and I didn't know why. And a lot of that was because of what I now realize was my career brand. Now, what is a career brand? A career brand is another way to describe your personal brand, which is a way to basically talk about your reputation. I call it a career brand because sometimes people hear personal brand and they're like, ooh, that's kind of icky. So a career brand describes that your brand is in service of your career. Now, if you think about your career brand as your reputation, all those things I mentioned are positive things. But if I'm trying to reach a different level at work, those aren't the things that someone would use to describe a senior leader. Instead, you would want to to be described as a great cross-functional partner, strategic, I don't know, maybe visionary, all these other things that are required of the next level. And so I hadn't realized, but I had sort of pigeonholed myself sticking to this brand when in reality I needed to change opinions and perception and shift to a different type of brand. So the Epic Career Brand Framework is a step-by-step framework for people to start thinking through, what is my brand? How do I want to present myself to the world? So experiences, personality, identity, community, these are the 4 factors to walk through and think about whether you are in a company or looking for a new job.
How did you decide to come to those 4 factors?
Took a little brainstorming because sort of like presence, it can mean a lot of different things. Like, what is a brand, right? So to me, I mean, experiences are really important. That's kind of the foundation of like your work and what you've done. I liked including personality because like, you know, we're both introverted or ambiverts. I talk about that on LinkedIn a lot. It is part of my brand. And I think it's a significant piece in how you operate at work. And so like, what do you want to be known for personality wise? Are you the introvert, the extrovert, more serious, sort of the team culture champion? There's a lot of different ways that you can be known. Identity, I also thought was important because, you know, I'm an Asian American woman. I think having that cultural identity is important, but also you have an identity in terms of the values that you care about when you work with someone. So for example, I really value relationships and being a reliable partner. I want people to know that about me when they decide to work with me or hear about me from someone else. And then the last part, the C, the community, is the part that a lot of people forget about. So I thought that was really important to include, is that I can have a perception of my brand, but if it doesn't align with how my community or how my network sees me, then it doesn't really matter what I think about myself, because your brand is how other people perceive you, right? Perception is reality. So you need to make sure that those 2 things are aligned. So that involves asking people, talking to people, posting on platforms like LinkedIn to make sure everything is aligned across all the different touch points someone has with you. And then related to community, do people even know you exist? And what are they saying about you when you're not in the room? So do you have people talking about you even when you're not there? So to me, those are the 4 really important criteria. And I don't know, what do you think, Ashley? Do you agree? Anything you would add?
I think that's great. I think one of the things that I would add is either credibility or authority.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
I think it could actually wrap around with experiences.
Yeah.
So, but I think that, like you said, it's not what you think about yourself. And then self-promotion is kind of a key. And idea promotion, and also service. For the first few years, I did not want to be like showing up, and I didn't know how to run a business because I would run like litigations. I didn't have to work on anything. I mean, as long as I meet my deadlines, it's fine. And I was telling one of the other executives that used to work at Sony, because I didn't even know what a P&L it was. I knew that there were so many experiences that I was becoming a CEO or principal and founder. I was lacking the business perspective of it. The first 2 years, I knew that there was something missing, but I didn't know how to like get those education. So I took marketing courses because when you're a CEO, I don't have a huge team.
Sure. Yeah.
And I was a lone wolf early on. So you got to be your CEO, CMO, COO, all kinds of those. Yeah. And then, so I took a course on marketing with a brand strategy professor on Simon Sinek's platform, and we became friends. Great. And he's actually on my podcast many times. You know, we interview like someone from the National Inventor Hall of Fame and the managing counsel at Duolingo last month. So that was really cool. The podcast actually opened up so many opportunities, but there's so many things that I didn't know. I applied for Tory Burch Foundation Fellowship. I applied for FedEx Small Businesses. All of this, I kind of knew that it was a long shot of getting it because I didn't know what I was doing. But the exposure of basically having something that you have to be so disciplined in communicating and committing, it was such an interesting journey.
Yeah.
I was talking to my event pro this morning. I said, do you remember when I was recording my video? And I have like one of the shyest person, my illustrator, to basically ask me questions. I had to do a video recording. And I was like, oh my God, I just cannot deal with it because I was dealing most part of it being introvert, ambivert, that I am so not happy seeing myself on the camera. And your book talk about technology of like camera equipment. So that was such a helpful part of it that I was like, oh, that's interesting. Investing in Sure.
Nice,
Some sometimes people like, you just don't know. And I think being open to opportunity, sometimes you might get rejections, sometimes you might be surprised. It could be unexpected.
Yeah.
So that has been very, very interesting. And then on LinkedIn, I have actually gone to conferences and I didn't even know because I post just like, this is a good post, I'm going to do it. And then sometimes I look at the likes and following, and then other times I don't. But I have a couple of really interesting ones that, people asking me for like to speak.
Yeah, great.
At a conference. This one was really funny. I was at a conference in Colorado last year, and it's a NAPABA. It's the National Asian Pacific American, sort of like the legal
I think I've
association.
Heard of it, actually.
Yes. I think this year they're going to have it in LA.
Oh.
So I'm going to do that. So yeah, definitely. Maybe there's something that you could do. I'll see. I will explore that.
Yeah, appreciate it.
No problem. I'm all about exploring. And I was like having breakfast and talking to this woman. She's a young attorney, I think in Boston at a firm. And we were talking and she was like, she looked at my later and she was like, I think that, so what do you do? So I was like, yeah, I am actually a podcaster. I'm doing this. I am a principal and founder of Virtual Patent Gateway and this and that. And then she goes like, oh, I think I know and follow someone in your area. I was like, oh, okay, interesting. So she does similar things that you do. I was like, oh, okay, that's fine. And then at that point, I was curious. So it's like, who is that other person? I was like, have this inkling thinking that might be me.
Yeah.
I was like, do you mind pulling up on LinkedIn and see who that person is? And then I look it up and then she pulled it up. She goes like, oh, that's me.
Yeah, always funny when it works out like that, right?
Yeah, that was actually quite funny. So that was good. All right. So let's talk about layoff. I think that nowadays, especially a lot of things in government, the position in government, a lot of layoff, people have to reinvent or pivot their careers. I thought that your story is so inspiring, and you turn a layoff into the launch of a Rise Learning Solutions. And what did that experience teach you about self-reliance, self-efficacy, and resilience?
The end of 2022, a lot of layoffs were happening in tech. I, perhaps a little bit naively, thought that it wouldn't impact me. I had joined tech during its height, and so I had never experienced a layoff before, even though I had friends in different industries who had. When I got an inkling that maybe layoffs were happening, I sort of just like, oh, that's not gonna be me. It's going to be someone else. And then it happened one day. I wake up, look at my phone, see the calendar invite. It's titled Your Conversation.
Oh God.
and then it has a link to a video from the CEO about layoffs. Now, when I had first joined Prezi, they had done some layoffs. I was a manager, so I had to lay off some people like I didn't even know, basically. So I thought this was like the same thing, like they're telling the managers that layoffs are coming. And then I realized, oh, there's only 3 people on this calendar invite. Me, my boss, and HR. Oh, I think this is my layoff. Yeah, so I quickly got up and didn't process it all right away, just got online, started like figuring out the files that I needed, and then the conversation happened. It was quite a shock, still quite upsetting, got a little bit emotional on the call and then cried a little bit after the call. And so you go through all the different feelings, right? But I do find that as I get older, I bounce back faster. And so really the fact that I had a little bit of that side hustle, a little bit of something that was not completely tied to my corporate identity, it really did help me have that confidence to say, I think I can do something on my own, or at least I have, enough savings to try for a year and let's see what happens. Now, I didn't know, would I like it? Like you said, Ashley, it's very tumultuous. It's up and down. You're doing a lot of different things. I didn't know if I would like that. I didn't know if I would have the motivation or if I would just want to lie down on the couch outside because it's there and I don't have a boss telling me what to do. But it turns out I ended up not lying on the couch, and I was able to weather sort of the ups and downs of entrepreneurship, and I enjoyed building my own business. And so I think grass always looks greener for people in corporate, seeing people who own their business, and people who own their business are like, wow, I wish I had a consistent salary. So pros and cons to each, but I'm going into year 4 now, still very happy with my work. I've been able to hire a small team, and so we're growing and we're still going.
And managing a team, I don't manage the people. That is a job in itself.
This is true. This is true. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, and sometimes it's like, I don't know about you, but can we talk a little bit about confidence? Because I think for Asian Americans, I'm originally from Hong Kong. I wasn't born in the States. I was originally from Hong Kong. I was naturalized here. My confidence, I have absolute confidence in my professional competence. I can file, I can do my things. I follow instructions well. I'm a hard worker. But when you come out and become an entrepreneur, those are not necessarily great things. So how do you define confidence?
I define confidence as doing things that make me uncomfortable or that are scary and coming out on the other side. Perhaps it's a little bit of a byproduct of that. But confidence is a level of feeling sure of yourself. And even if you're not always sure, you're still doing the thing and taking that action and taking that step. In the book, as you saw, I talk about imposter syndrome, a few times. I had a lot of imposter syndrome, or have had a lot of imposter syndrome throughout my career. But each time I still do the thing, even with imposter syndrome, you're building up a data bank of sorts where the next time a scary thing comes along, you're like, oh, well, I did it the last time and I didn't die and everything was okay, and I made it pass. And the worst thing is maybe it didn't work out as you hoped, but you still got a learning from it, and that builds up confidence too. And that also allows me to act faster each time I come up against something that feels difficult. Well, I've done it now 10 times, 20 times, 30 times. The more you push yourself to feel uncomfortable, and then remembering that's where the growth happens. So I think that has helped a lot with my confidence. And then, like I mentioned before, the public speaking part and putting myself out there and feeling comfortable on camera. And that also has translated to my personal life. The way I talk on camera, which is more animated now than it used to be, also is now like the way I talk in person with friends. So it kind of carries over through all aspects of life.
That's so awesome. I'm so glad. So I think this, what you are saying here for the confident part of it is that one of the coaches that I talked to, and is basically, he said that one thing that he's really happy to see my growth is that I, instead of just like contemplating how to make everything perfect before you make the first step, just thinking your way into, just basically doing your way into being.
Yeah.
And then that way you could actually, through trial and error, you could not necessarily perfect it, because perfectionism is so overrated. Not so much in legal, because we have to have precision, right? I mean, you cannot say, oh, I'm not going to practice perfectionism today and just add in sort of like not so great product. So I think this industry specific, but one thing that I really enjoy is that, and I see you as a role model in that sense. There are a couple of people that I really like. Sheena Yap-Chen is another person. When I first started the podcast, for example, I did not know what I was doing. I just talked to my event pro. I was like, do you think that we should do a podcast? How difficult would that be? She was like, I don't know. She managed the other side of it. For me, I was practicing public speaking. Conversational speaking. Because as a CEO, you have to be able to present yourself. And one thing that you talk about at your book, and a lot of people is like, hi, I'm Ashley Cheung. I'm the principal and founder of Virtual Patent Gateway. Boring. How else would you actually be able to practice it? So some of the people recommended join Toastmasters International. So I try a couple of times, but not necessarily successfully getting some consistent membership or involvement in my area. They're great organizations. I actually know some people there. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to do a podcast. It's not going to be that bad. I had no idea. We are on year 4 now.
It's a lot of work, a podcast. Yeah.
It's a lot of work.
That's why I haven't done one.
It's okay. You get invited. So you don't have to. At least not yet. You haven't not done one yet.
True.
You probably will. So Sheena Yap-Chen, one of the things is she's like always so like easygoing. She's so supportive. And her podcast is getting very close to 1,000 episodes. And so I was on her podcast and she invited me on. And then at some point I was like, hey, Sheena, do you think that you could interview for me? I wasn't confident enough. I was thinking that I don't know that I would actually do a good job. Maybe I just pay someone to do that. I had Sheena do a couple of guest interviews. And after that, I look at it, I was like, that doesn't seem so bad. I think I can do it.
Yeah.
So early episode, I think I told people, it was like, I kind of suck. But that's usually how it goes, right?
I mean,
If you
that's how
don't
you learn.
practice,
Yeah, like if it was
yes.
easy, I mean, to be perfect at everything you try, life is boring, right? You never learn anything new.
And
So,
it's just so much, it takes a huge toll on your mental wellness. If you want it to be like, oh, I gotta be perfect on this and I gotta be perfect on that, I was like, I don't have time for that, you know? So I just thought that that was interesting. It's like confidence in terms of how you defined it. I really like that. So thank you for sharing that. To close, can you give us 3 practical changes that someone can make that would improve their presence on LinkedIn?
so
Because
the
that's your
first,
specialty too.
yeah. So for LinkedIn, 3 things to improve your presence. Okay, very tactical things. Your background photo or your cover photo, literally biggest piece of real estate on your profile and at the top. First thing people see when they click through. Make sure there's something there that tells someone who's visiting your page what you do. So I don't want like the default LinkedIn banner. I don't want like a naturescape. I want some words. I want like a website, like something, some keywords so people can know at a quick glance, what are you about? The second easy fix is the headline. The headline, as you mentioned, Ashley, like when we introduce ourselves, it's like job title at company. A lot of people do this on LinkedIn as well. We have 220 characters, so LinkedIn actually gave us even more space than they used to. All these keywords, they play a role in when someone's searching for you on the LinkedIn platform or on Google. Those keywords impact search. So you want to make sure you're including keywords. You want to ensure you're including some sort of mission statement about what you do or like what makes you special, or talk about past companies you've worked at, past results you've gotten. Include something there because, again, first place people look and it's actually impacting search. And then the last tip that I really like is whether you are at a company or whether you are starting your own business, scroll all the way down to the bottom of your profile and make sure you have some social proof. Now, by that, I mean you are asking for LinkedIn recommendations. Like imagine if you're applying for a job and you have 2 equal candidates of same experience and one person has, let's say, like 5 to 10 LinkedIn recommendations about how great it is to work with that person. You are naturally going to be drawn to the person with the social proof. Someone reached out to me recently who's starting his own business. He asked if, he could do a project for me, and I don't have time right now, but I said, one of the first things I did was I went to your profile to see if people had good things to say about you, because you're coming in cold asking to work on something for me. I don't know if you're good to work with. Like, I don't know if it's going to be easy or hard. So the testimonials or the recommendations at the bottom of the page, I think, go a long way. So in the book, I call it a Yelp for professionals. So make sure
Yep, for professional. I
make sure
love
you have
that.
something, at least a few recommendations there. It makes a difference.
That's amazing. And I am really just so grateful. And I have to think of something after March or April that, what we can actually collaborate on. And then so I can help you also promote your book, maybe have an
You're already
event
doing
in
so
the Bay
much. Yeah.
Area.
I
Well,
appreciate everything you're doing. Yeah.
I'm a total overachiever, have I told you that? Yeah, it's really such an amazing time to spend with you today. And I'm
Yeah,
so
same.
grateful. Thank you so much for saying yes. You're on LinkedIn. So I
On
know that people
LinkedIn. Yeah.
know that, if they want to connect you. But I think that anyone who wants to kind of have unforgettable presence, they should actually order your book,
Yes.
Audible, all kinds of format.
Anywhere where
And
books are
so,
sold. Yep.
yes, exactly. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ashley. We'll talk soon.